Have you ever stopped to think about how millionaire consultants in your industry, in your space, got to where they are? Like, what really caused them to reach their breaking point and decide to go all in and bet on themselves? Well, in this episode, we're going to explore 5 common reasons why millionaires hit their breaking point and how you and I can actually avoid waiting so long to take action and use our expertise as a guide to make those millions a lot sooner. So if you're interested in this episode and all that we can learn from the past, then tune in. Let's get started. There's a misconception that we don't exist, that somehow our ability to excel at the highest level of our industry is limited, that overcoming barriers as a woman of color would be insurmountable. But what would happen if we decided to venture out on our own despite everything we're up against? I'll tell you. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, a healthcare consultant, consulting coach, high performance fanatic, wife, and proud girl mom. I help transform female professionals into thriving solo consultants. And just like you, I'm wearing all the hats and doing all the things. So this podcast is to empower the busy female professionals to move past fear to start and grow a successful consulting business, despite the obstacles you may encounter. We'll dive deep into consulting practice, business strategy, mindset, and more. So grab your cup of coffee or tea if that's your thing, and let's get started. Hello. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, and today I want to have a friendly chat with you. One of the reasons why I decided to just have a chat today is because I was scrolling online, and whenever I'm scrolling online and I run across these articles, sometimes I get so full of ideas and emotions and thoughts that I want to just get it all out. And so this is an article that I ran across in CNBC. It was entitled, I spent 5 years interviewing 233 millionaires, and here's the number one career move they made to make them rich. So look, I'm going to go ahead and let you know off the jump that, that the decision that they made was to quit their mid to late career jobs and either change jobs and go in a different direction or start their own businesses. That's not the point of this discussion today, because I'm not a firm believer that you need to quit your job in order to be successful. I think we all can take different paths to get there. But if you do want to do that, then this is definitely a sign that you can go all in. But what I want to focus on is really what led them to make this decision, because think about it as their $1 million decision. I did an episode a while back. I'll have to drop that into the description so that you can go back and listen to it. But it was all about $1 million decisions. And so they made their $1 million decision. And their $1 million decision really was not to quit their job. I mean, that was part of the process that helped them get there. But in my mind, their $1 million decision really was to just simply bet on themselves, to believe that they were able to create the world that they desired to live in terms of their life, their lifestyle, their means of making money, and to build up their wealth and enjoy their life on their own terms. So I feel as if we definitely can learn something from this. And what I wanted to do with this episode is talk about what led them to get to that point, like what took them there, because it took most of these people that they were mentioning in this article, these 233 millionaires, it took them until they reached their mid to late career stage before they made that jump. But I want to argue that we don't have to wait that long. Well, look, I'm already kind of mid-career, but for anyone else who is at an earlier stage in your career journey, but you've already reached this pinnacle, or even you've reached a level within your industry and your space where you feel confident and comfortable moving further along and able to help others along their journey or their path, you don't have to wait so long to decide to make that jump. And so let's explore in this episode what they actually experienced, what those red flags were for them. And how consulting can help you navigate those parts of your life, because I always say that consulting is just like this hidden gem, this way of building a successful business and wealth and money generating money for yourself that many people overlook because we think we need to always come up with a product, or we think we need to somehow sell some service that is not solely reliant on our knowledge. But you've already invested so much in that. You've already invested in these degrees and certifications and all of those things. So let's put them to use. And I want to talk about how we can do that. So one of the first reasons that many people decide to take the leap is because they were being underutilized. And I feel like this is something that's really, really common. I know I, in particular, got to that point. You feel like you are doing repetitive tasks, things that you are being challenged with day to day really are rather simple. You are used to solving those problems over and over again. You probably can do it with your eyes closed, and you just don't see a way to take on higher level work that's going to really challenge you. It just seems that everything that comes your way, even when people try and offer new opportunities, things that are going to spark that interest again, it doesn't quite do it. It's almost like you are doing work that was meant for someone else. It wasn't meant for you at this stage. And really, that's because you've just become so great at what you do. Once you get to this level of higher level expertise, then it's hard for you to find many of the things that others find challenging to be complicated. And that can make you feel stuck and stagnant and searching for a way to feel like you're growing and doing more. And in many of these cases, the millionaires that they interviewed, they were searching similarly for an outlet, and the outlet just didn't exist in their current position. And that's okay, because oftentimes for us, the outlet is not going to exist in our current job, in our current 9-to-5, in the current projects that we're working on. And so we have to think about how we can create this new level of interest. And that typically is going to involve you gaining new skill sets and being exposed to new and unique problems, being able to use your unique perspective in a more innovative way. And often that is not something that is easy to do in a career setting, because there is already a status quo. There's already a standard. You're almost boxed in by expectations. Well, one of the wonderful benefits of going out on your own is the fact that you're able to dictate what that looks like for you. You don't have a status quo that you have to live up to. You're able to take on challenging projects and to move into new areas and learn new skill sets. That is part of the beauty of doing something new, and consulting can take you there. You can begin to do this work without leaving your 9-to-5. And so even if you find yourself in this position where you are also faced with a situation where you feel as if the work is more or less keeping you stagnant because it's the same old repetitive tasks day in and day out, just know that you can challenge yourself. You can do that by evolving your practice beyond your career. And remember that you don't need to have permission to do that. So when you're thinking about how do you begin to grow? How do you begin to find something that's new and that's something that's interesting and something that will leave you wishing and and excited for the next day? Then know that consulting is one approach, one way of getting there. And you can do that by thinking of what you truly enjoy doing. What are the things that you want to dive into now? What are some of the new, I would say, things on the horizon that you want to tap into? Or maybe where do you see yourself shifting your practice to make a bigger change or a greater impact, or things that make you upset and that you are passionate about and that you want to see evolve or to change over time? That is a great starting place for you thinking about how you are going to build a consulting business. And remember that you can start this work early on. So even if you're taking on 1 or 2 clients on the side, while you're beginning to get your business up and running and getting things up to speed, this can actually be a wonderful opportunity for you to spread your wings and to feel as if you are being challenged and that you are not stuck in that same old spot as you have been in the past. Because at the end of the day, if you feel as if you are stuck and if you feel like you're not growing and you're not expanding, then that is a very, very, I would say, difficult and threatening and somewhat definitely limiting place to be. Because in those instances, you become blocked in terms of your creativity, your innovation, your willingness to push the envelope and to grow and expand, because you may not feel as if doing so in your current setting is going to reap a reward or a benefit. And so what I want you to know is that as you venture out on your own, you can paint the picture to look like whatever you desire. So I want you to lean into that and think about really how you can create those opportunities for yourself that give you this level of excitement and restores that love and passion for the work that more than likely you loved doing when you first started. If you're finding yourself following all the successful accounts on Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube, and you're just trying to recreate their strategies but haven't experienced much growth, or you're consistently sharing tons of helpful content within your industry, almost burning yourself out, but you're still struggling to get potential clients to see the value of the services that you offer, if that's the case, it's time for you to be seen as the expert that you are. It's time for you to make a greater impact. So here's the deal. Using a cookie cutter approach won't help you stand out from the crowd or attract the aligned clients that you need to build a profitable business and create the freedom you desire to live life on your own terms. Your expertise is unique and your approach to be awesome. That's why I created my signature program, Position to Excel, which is a highly focused, curriculum-based, personalized coaching program developed to help you accelerate the growth of your consulting business by creating a magnetic core offer, an expert personal brand to position your services to sell effectively. And unlike other programs that rely on traditional methods to attract leads, we develop a personalized approach to fill your pipeline without cold calls or reliance on referrals and RFPs. So if you're interested in taking your consulting business to the next level or starting and getting yours off the ground, visit www.excellaconsulting.com, apply for Position to Excel, and let's get started. Okay, so here's that second reason. I think many of us can likely relate to this, if not now, then at some point in our career journey, is that they had toxic bosses. All right. Let's talk about this workplace toxicity and these toxic workplace environments. We know they exist, right? I think we can relate to it, especially as women, definitely as women of color. This is something that can be one of the main reasons why we end up hating our jobs, hating our 9-to-5, hating our careers. It's not the work that we do often. It really is the environment. And when you're dealing with a toxic workplace where you have racial inequities in the workplace, where you're dealing with passive aggression all of the time, where you're having to fight for inclusion so that your voice can be heard or your work can be given its proper credit and acknowledgement, then the thing is that it can make you hate showing up every day. I mean, think about it. When you even visualize your workplace or maybe your office suite, your office mate if you share office space, or anyone that you have to work with on a day-to-day basis that you don't find that interaction to be pleasing. When that thought comes to your head, do you feel overwhelmed with joy? Or do you feel upset that you have to show up yet another day to put up with the nonsense so that you can make a living? Which one are you feeling? Because oftentimes it's the latter. And there is absolutely no reason why, with the level of knowledge and skill that you have, that you should be putting up with that. None of us should. And I'm not trying to say that just because things are difficult or uneasy that you should walk out the door. I'm not saying not to champion a greater cause and mission and to fight for all of those things to be improved upon and repaired. Definitely do that. But as you fight, you can actually fight while also building your wealth at the same time. So I want us to think about ways that we can begin to exit those environments. I don't want anyone, not anyone listening to this podcast episode or any other woman out there working as an expert in their field or expert in their space to feel as if you have to remain in these toxic environments in order for you to make a name for yourself or to build your career or to achieve success, because that is not true. You don't have to put yourself in that type of space day after day. You don't have to wait to be in another space where your intellect and your brilliance and your talent and your skill is looked upon highly and valued and compensated appropriately, right? So if you are in any of these toxic environments and dealing with a toxic boss or toxic workplace in general, this has been one of the main reasons that many have moved on and decided to bet on themselves and take a leap. Their decision to take that leap led them to millions. It didn't hold them back. And I think that's the one mindset shift that we oftentimes have to make, is that when we take the leap, and bet on ourselves, we are not placing ourselves at a disadvantage. We can actually be placing ourselves in a position to make an even greater expansion in terms of our success, in terms of our wealth, and in terms of the legacy that we want to leave. So don't settle for toxicity. Know that you are not meant to struggle in those environments, to fight nonstop, day in and day out. I know we've done it for years and for decades, but we are not meant to fight that battle forever. It is not necessary. And what I want us to think about is the value that we're bringing to the table in these positions, in these toxic environments, that we are the human capital that is making many of these corporations and businesses millions upon millions of dollars, and realize that we can use that to build the wealth that we need for ourselves. So once again, this was the second reason why many of these now millionaires left their 9-to-5, and it was because they had toxic bosses. All right, this next one really pertains to anyone, but I am going to talk about this from the perspective of all of my moms out there, especially my mompreneurs. One of the main reasons why these now millionaires took the leap is because they had a draining commute. And that commute became so lengthy that it began to interfere with the things that they had in place in their lives and what they wanted to accomplish outside of their 9-to-5. It was wearing on them day after day to make those long commutes and try and be there to fulfill whatever is required for them or required of them in their current position, and then be able to also fulfill whatever other needs existed outside of their 9-to-5. This can be a challenge. Commutes can be huge when it comes to your quality of life, when it comes to how satisfied and fulfilled you are in your position. I often talk about how one of the key moments that led me to start my business was after a long day of work, and I was struggling to fight traffic. My daughter had a performance at her theater later that afternoon, and I just remember myself fighting traffic in the city, trying to get all the way back out to the suburbs so that I could get to her performance. And I, of course, didn't make it. No matter how hard I tried, and I definitely tried, no matter how fast I drove, I didn't make it in time. And I remember sitting in that parking lot when I drove up, and I recognized that it was over, and her mom wasn't there in the audience. And I know you hear these sob stories, and some people are like, well, that's not that big of a deal. It's just one little performance. But it wasn't just one little performance. That was actually something that has started happening more often because I would get caught up in work, or maybe something was expected to me, things ran over, and I wasn't able to rush out the door. Or even if I was able to rush out the door, the long commute, it was unpredictable. And so because the commute was unpredictable, then one of the challenges that I had was being able to be present in those moments where it truly mattered to my loved ones, to my girls. And just sitting there in that parking lot after you miss such a big moment in their lives because you were stuck in traffic for a meeting that, in all honesty, didn't have much value to you in terms of where you see yourself going in the future or what you even want to do in a moment. That's hard. And you begin to question, what are you sacrificing for this? What are you giving up in order to be able to say that you have reached a certain level or you have a certain position? All of those things matter. Your commute matters. The way that your day is structured matters. If it's draining all of the energy from you and you can barely show up when you walk in the door at home to those you love, how is that making your life better? How is that making you feel more successful in the end? And I think that that's something that we often feel like we have to do. If we are working as mothers and as caregivers, we feel like we are expected to sacrifice all these things so that we can succeed and to wear all these hats and to be superwoman and to show up. And that is just not true. We're going to just dispel all of these myths. And like I said before, this is what carried many of these now millionaires to their breaking point. We don't have to get to a breaking point before we realize that some of the structure that's in place in some of our positions in our careers do not fit our lifestyles. They don't align with the vision that we have for the life we want to live. And so in many of these cases, something that is what appears to be as simple as a lengthy commute became the reason why they decided to go all in. And I will argue that it's not the commute itself, although that can be draining, but it really is what that commute means in terms of the changes that happen in your life, the things that you possibly miss out on, that you never get back. Those things are worth so much more than many of the minutes and the hours that we spend commuting back and forth, trying to get to a job that is really not in alignment with what we see our future as being. Being able to create a business for yourself that allows you to show up for those you love when you need to be at the plays, to be at the softball games, to show up at many of the school performances that they now like to put in the middle of the day. Instead of after school like they used to be, like they should be, in my personal opinion. But they put many of these award ceremonies, at least where I live, in the middle of the day. And you can be there for that. You don't have to miss out on those moments. You can create a way for you to not just make it day by day and be there, right? Not take a pay cut and be there. But in these cases, for what we're talking about, these 233 millionaires, they made their lives better and they're still there. Really, the key is just not to be fearful of change. And that really leads us to the last reason that is cited in this article, is that many of these millionaires that were interviewed actually left because their industry was unsteady. And they were really tired of trying to figure out how they were going to survive year to year. They wanted to have security. And I think there's this misconception that we have that our jobs, our careers, our 9-to-5s are going to be more stable and more secure than anything that we can create on our own. And that is not necessarily true. I think if anything, we have learned through recent years dealing with a global pandemic that even the most stable of careers or jobs at one point in time can become unstable in the future. We can't hang our hat on the fact that if someone else is cutting a check, that somehow that means that we are secure, that we are stable, that because we've been in this position for so many years or for decades, that we're not at threat of being let go or cut, because that's not true. That has never been true. And why we believe and have so much trust in someone else to make sure that we are able to survive is really, it's really beyond me when I think about it. I've been guilty of doing the same thing, but I would actually now trust myself over someone else when it comes to my stability and my financial future and what that will look like for years to come. But we've been trained and ingrained to believe that our careers will offer that steadiness, that security. But one of the reasons why many people have chosen to really bet on themselves is because they found themselves in a position where that stability was not there. They didn't feel like they had the stability that they once had. They didn't feel secure. And in those positions, in those moments, just know that you can create security for yourself. You can actually begin to make this transition and build security for yourself without even leaving your career. Because what you would be generating is tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars through the work in your consulting business that can then support you if anything ever happened. You have the ability to create that option of choice. And choice is what I believe really gives us the freedom that we desire. It's the ability to choose whether or not we want to stay or we want to make a change. You may choose that there is a period of time where you want to go on sabbatical indefinitely until you figure out what you want to do next. Have the freedom to do that. And I think that oftentimes us being able to recognize that we can create the stability that we need for ourselves and not rely on our careers or 9-to-5 to create that for us, it makes us more comfortable in whatever position we find ourselves in. And so we don't have to wait until the bottom falls out in our industry to think about these things. You can begin to use your consulting business to create those investments and begin to start those new ventures that are going to set you up for the future. I'm just throwing all these ideas out at you because I know that you want more. I know that you are ready to build your own wealth and legacy for yourself, that generational wealth that you want to pass on. I know that that's something like me that you want. And so that's why I feel like this conversation is so helpful, and we can learn from some of the things that these individuals walked away from, because not only did they walk away from these difficult moments and really what are often common moments that many of us experience in the corporate environment, but they walked away from them and walked into their millionaire era. They were able to walk into greater financial security. They were able to walk into greater success in the process. And I want us to know that we can do the same. So I hope this episode has been helpful for you. I actually hope that it just sparks ideas, right? It helps you to think about what you may be currently facing and working through right now and navigating and trying to figure out, how do you make this situation better? I want to just give you an idea as to how some others were able to take these same circumstances and turn them into millions and millions of dollars. So with that, I think we all have something to work toward. And guess what? I can't wait to talk to you again next week. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. Talk soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave your review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share it with a friend. We're on a mission to increase the success and longevity of women in consulting, and you can help us do that. Also, I'd love to hear from you, so let's connect at Dr. Angelina Davis on Instagram or LinkedIn. And don't forget to visit excelatconsulting.com for more information to support your consulting journey. Until next time, take care.